are talking about the highway that changed Houston forever. Houston has a lot of highways, like a suspicious amount of highways. If aliens landed here and looked around, they probably assume our main religion was frontage roads. But out of all Houston's giant concrete monsters, one highway stands out: Interstate 45. It connects Houston to Dallas and Galveston, cuts straight through the city, carries a ridiculous amount of traffic, and somehow manages to be both incredibly important and incredibly annoying at the same time. So today we are taking a deep dive into I-45, the road that helped shape Houston, frustrate Houston, and maybe even define Houston. This is inside Interstate 45, one of Houston's most important roads. I-45 isn't just some random road with numbers slapped on it. It's one of the most important highways in Houston, and honestly in all of Texas. The road connects Houston to Dallas to the north and Galveston to the south, which means it's doing a lot more than just moving commuters around. It's a route for work trips, road trips, freight, tourism, and even hurricane evacuations. In Houston area alone, part of I-45 carry well over 300,000 vehicles a day. That's not traffic, that's basically a rolling city. So if you have ever been stuck in I-45, wondering if your car has become part of a pavement forever, congratulations! You have participated in Houston, one of the Houston's most important transportation corridors. What is I-45? So what exactly is I-45? Interstate 45 is a north to south highway in Texas that runs for about 284 miles, connecting the Gulf Coast to North Texas. If you zoom out, the route is actually pretty simple: Galveston to Houston to Dallas. That's it. No crossing half the country, no dramatic journeys from one ocean to the other. I-45 is just basically Texas saying, you know what? We need one more road that ties these places together, and we need it now. But even though it's not the longest interstate ever, it punches way above its weight because of where it goes and what it connects. I-45 in Houston. Now let's zoom into the part that matters most for this video: I-45 in Houston. Inside the Houston area, I-45 slices through the city and connects a bunch of major destination neighborhoods and highways. It links up the downtown North Houston to Southeast Houston and major roads like I-45, I-69, which is also called US 59, Loop 610, and Beltway 8. And that's a huge reason why I-45 matters so much. It's not just taking people from Houston to somewhere else, it's moving people through Houston, around Houston, and into some of the busiest parts of the region. Basically, if Houston's network was a giant machine, I-45 is one of the belts keeping the whole thing running. Break down the route. One thing that makes I-45 kind of confusing is that Houston, it doesn't feel like one road. It feels like several different personalities. So let's break it down. First, there is North Freeway. This is part of that connects downtown to North Houston and the northern suburbs. It's a major commuter corridor, and even if you live north of the city, chances are you and this freeway know each other very well, like me. Then there's a Gulf Freeway, which heads southeast from downtown towards places like Clear Lake area and eventually Galveston. This section is important for commuters, port-related movement, and all the people heading towards the coast. And then there's the downtown segment, the part where things get messy. This is one of the most important parts of the corridor, but also one of the most congested. I can tell you that it is congested. It's where a bunch of major roads crash into each other in a classic Houston fashion and basically say, good luck, everybody. Why I-45 matters. So why does I-45 matter so much? Because it's doing like 6 jobs at once. It's a commuter route for people traveling into and out of Houston every day. It's a freight corridor moving goods through the region. It's a hurricane evacuation route, which is a huge deal on the Gulf Coast. It's the road people take to Galveston, which means beach traffic gets through into the mix. It connects Houston to Dallas, one of the biggest cities in the state. And on top of all of that, it links people to jobs, downtown destinations, and major activity centers. So I-45 isn't just a highway. It's basically a transportation network, transportation Swiss army knife. Except instead of helping you open a bottle, it helps you sit in traffic on the way to work. What makes I-45 different? Houston has a lot of major highways. So what makes I-45 stand out? Well, for one, it connects both Dallas and Galveston, which gives it a weird broad job description. One minute it's serving daily commuters and the next it's carrying vacation traffic, freight trucks and hurricane evacuees. It also cuts straight through the urban core of Houston, which means it's deeply tied into the city itself. It isn't just some bypass out in the suburbs. I-45 is right in the middle of the Houston transportation story. And maybe most importantly, it's at the center of a huge rebuilding debate, which means I-45 isn't just part of Houston's past, it's a huge part of Houston's future too. Houston and the freeway era. Bad era. To understand I-45, you kind of have to understand Houston itself. Houston exploded in growth during the mid-20th century, and a lot of that growth happened during the freeway era. This was the time when cities all over America were built giant road networks and basically saying cars are the future and we're going all in. Houston especially embraced that mindset. Instead of building itself around dense transit corridors, it spread outward with freeway as the backbone. And I-45 became one of the major roads at the center of this growth. It helped connect downtown to expanding suburbs, opened up the new development pattern, and reinforced the idea that in Houston, car was the king. Or maybe emperor. Honestly, Houston road system is so big it might just be more like a freeway empire. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Okay, before I-45. But before I-45, Houston moved differently. The city relied more on local streets, older roads, railroads, and a much smaller regional transportation network. Travel still happened, obviously, but not as the same scale and not with the same giant freeway corridor slicing through the city. Once highway like I-45 arrived, the whole shape of Houston started to change. People could live further from where they worked. More development spread outwards. Downtown became more connected by road, but neighborhoods also got cut apart by massive infrastructure. So I-45 didn't just make Houston easier to drive through, it helped reshape how the city itself was built. And my personal opinion, highways should not be the one deciding how our cities look. Transit should be. We should be built around transit corridors, such as trams, buses. We should have more density near them, more frequency. I know this this might be really hard for for the transit agencies, but we can at least get the city to help with the density near there. We can have city fund low rent housing near the transit corridors, big major streets. I don't know, I want our city, Houston, especially to have more transit oriented development because okay, side note. A few days ago, I saw this group of people crossing the street and they looked horrified. It was dangerous. The cars kept there were a lot of cars going beside them and they were just moving by and it was kind of crazy. I think for safer Houston we need transit and these highways they are also important. I'm not saying tear down all the highways or all the roads. We can have them, but we need also a place where transit is easy and accessible. Okay, going back to the video. Downtown freeway system. And then we get to downtown Houston, where the freeway map starts looking less like a transportation planning and more like someone spilled spaghetti on a blueprint. Downtown Houston is where I-45 merges and interacts with I-10 and I-69, creating one of those most important and most chaotic highways area in the region. This is where traffic piles up, where the lane decision becomes your life decisions, and one wrong move can suddenly send you towards the exit you absolutely didn't want. But this downtown tangle also shows just how important I-45 is. It's not off to the side of the city. It's woven directly into the core of Houston highway system. And I think I have mentioned that a lot this video. Okay, another side note. Downtowns should not be built around a highway system. The highway systems should be in the outskirts, and the downtown should be built around transit corridors, railroads, and trams. Why is I-45 so congested? So now we get to the question every Houston driver asks at least once in their life. Why is I-45 so crowded? And I mean always. Morning traffic, afternoon traffic, random Tuesday at 2:17 when you thought you finally beat it. Somehow still traffic. The answer is that I-45 is carrying a massive amount of demand. It's handling commuters, long distance driver, truck people going downtown, people leaving downtown, beach traffic, regional traffic, and a whole bunch of suburban trips there all at once. It's like Houston took half the region movement and poured it into one corridor and then acted surprised when things got messy. Why traffic happens. Traffic on I-45 isn't just caused by one thing, it's more like a chain reaction. Houston population keep growing, more people live further from where they work, means more suburban commuting. Those trips are starting to pile up in some major corridors, especially like I-45. Then you hit bottlenecks at interchanges, merges, exits, and downtown approaches, and suddenly the whole thing slows down. So the formula is basically population growth plus suburban commuting plus bottlenecks. Everyone's starting at brake lights. At once a highway becomes the default route for too many type of trips, congestion becomes kind of inevitable. So if traffic is bad, the obvious solution seems simple. Add more lanes. Well, not exactly. This is where we get into a concept called induced demand. I also cover this in my last video. Which it's kind of sound like AP economics, but it's actually pretty easy to understand. Here's it. When you ride on a highway road, driving becomes easier because the congestion there lessens because of there are more lanes. But then other drivers are gonna make trips that they were not gonna make if that lane wasn't there. They're gonna think, oh, the lane just opened. I think we're clear. There's gonna be less congestion, and that's not just them thinking. It's and other suburbs that's far away. They're also thinking the same thing. They're making the trips that they wouldn't have made. Now they're going to schools that they wouldn't have went to because of transportation problems. Now they're going different places that they wouldn't have went if that lane wasn't there. And then this next now all of those new drivers lead in more congestion, and that's called induced demand. More lanes. There is some amount of lanes that can fix the traffic, but it's not adding one more lane. So the highway gets wider, but the congestion often returns. Basically, adding lanes can be like losing your belt on Thanksgiving. It helps for a second, but it doesn't solve the problem. Major interchanges. Sorry about that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. One reason I-45 matters so much is because of the roads it connects. There's I-10, one of the biggest east to west routes in the country. There's I-69 or US 59, another major corridor through Houston. There's Loop 610, which wraps around the huge urban core. And then there's Beltway 8, which serves a huge suburban ring. And further out, there's connection towards SH99, the Grand Parkway, tying I-45 into outer metro area. So I-45 isn't operating alone, it's plugged into a much bigger regional network. Think of it like a main artillery connecting a bunch of other artilleries. Except instead of blood, it's carrying pickup trucks, Amazon vans, and at least one person who's definitely late for something. Human. It's easy to talk about how highways they're just like lines on a map, but roads like I-45 shape everyday life of real people. For Houstonians, I-45 is a part of daily routine. Getting to work, dropping off kids to school, heading downtown, visiting family, and driving to Galveston for the weekend. Even if you don't drive I-45 every single day, chances are you have still, in fact, still been impacted through traffic backups, detours, construction, and the way Houston is physically organized around roads like it is that shouldn't be. And that's why important, because transportation isn't just about infrastructure, it's about time, stress, access, opportunity, and how cities actually function from the perspective of the people living in it. A lot. Where, of course, I-45 has a long list of problems. It's a good highway, but it also has problems. There is congestion and delays. I think we have covered it in this video. Safety concerns. They are rebuilding the highway in downtown sections because it had too many car crashes. Of course it did. It it was it's one of the busiest highways in like Texas. Um, but we could have improved this if we had transit in the area, and a lot of people who were taking this would have been taking transit on the same corridor. There's construction disruption. Oh my god, I cannot emphasize this enough. Houston has a lot of construction. Aging infrastructure. Most of our infrastructure is it's standing, but it's kind of old. And I think our city council or our mayor, they are trying to fix it. And that's a good step in in the right way, but we also need to fix our transit. Flooding and storm vulnerability. Oh my god. Houston infrastructure just doesn't have to survive the traffic. If the traffic is fine, it might just be that the whole highway collapses. Because of what? Storm. Because of what? Floods. That's why Houston um, infrastructure needs to be built for storms and stuff. Yep. Should I-45 be rebuilt and expanded? And that leads us to the question, should I-45 be rebuilt and expanded? On one side, you have got a lot of people saying, who say that the corridor is too important, too outdated, and too congested to leave as it is. Houston keeps growing. They argue the highway needs to be modernized. On the other side, you got people say, hold on, haven't we tried this before? They worried that widening roads would really solve congestion and could create even more long-term problems. And honestly, that's what makes this debate so interesting. It's not just about concrete and lanes, it's about whether Houston wants to keep doubling down on the same transportation model or start trying something different. Why some support the expansion? Let's start with the case of expansion. Supporters argue that rebuilding I-45 increased capacity, improved safety, and modernized old interchanges that were never designed for current traffic levels. They say that Houston is still growing fast, and if the region is going to keep expanding, its infrastructure has to keep up. There's also the argument that a rebuilt corridor could be more resilient, better designed, and less chaotic than what it is today. So, from the point of view, expanding I-45 isn't just about adding lanes for fun, it's about upgrading a major piece of infrastructure that millions of people depend on. Why others oppose it? But the opposition side has some serious point too. Critics worry about neighborhoods, disruption, and displacement, especially in communities near downtown and North Houston. They also point out induced demand, arguing that widening highways may not actually solve congestion in the long run. Then there's the bigger question. Is Houston keep pouring money into highways or take attention away from transit, safer street, and other ways of moving people? There are also environment and social justice concerns tied to where highways go, who benefits from them, and who pays the cost of living next to them. So the opposition isn't just saying don't build stuff, they're asking whether this is really the best solution. I in my city, I would much rather see people going by transit, safer buses, more tram routes. I would love to see more light rail in the city. The light rail that we have is beautiful. It's wonderful. I love it. Love the red line. But I would love to see it expand too. I would love to see more lines. I would love to see more bus routes, more funding for metro. I would love all of that. And I think the money that's going in our highways should also be going in the transit. I know our city, it's doing their best to fund transit, but I would just encourage them more to help build better transit, BRTs. I live near one, and it's wonderful to be. There's almost no traffic, and thank you to the city for making that BRT, and I love it. And now they're also repairing it, but I want to see more stuff like it because there in Houston, it's not really common to see stuff like the BRT. Who is affected to change to I-45? And one reason this debate matters so much is because the effects of I-45 go way beyond drivers. Daily commuters are affected, neighborhoods near the corridors, business, freight traffic, transit riders can be affected by the road design of local street and buses. And during hurricanes evacuation, the way this corridor can affect huge number of people at once. So when Houston makes decision about I-45, it's not just choosing one road, looking like it's making decision about how people move and development happens and which community carry the burden of the choice. What could Houston do differently? So if highway alone are the answer, what could Houston do differently? One option is to invest in transit. So not every trip has to be made by car. I think we have mentioned that in this video too. Another is building BRT corridors and improving bus services on major routes. I know 82 has been wonderful. 8 to 10 minutes, lovely. But 49 goes by my school. I don't know what happened to it. 30 minutes, sometimes it comes 45. I wait by my school for like a long time. I still it's kind of hard sitting in the sun. We don't even have shade for both sides of the route. It's only the one near my school. Okay, so I would recommend having shade, providing it to people, and just like listening overall, like making like more BRT corridors too. It could encourage it could encourage mixed use development where homes and jobs and shops are closer together. I think we talked about it too. We should encourage more density beside transit corridors so we have more people riding it. Some low rent housing wouldn't be bad for Houston. Some stuff like that would really help our communities and our city. My take on I-45. Ooh. So here's my take. I-45 is absolutely vital for his Houston. It's important. I wouldn't deny it. I agree. I rode many times on I-45. My journey to school is by I-45, and it's lovely to see that it's being redeveloped. I agree. It's old. Thank you to the city for redeveloping it, and I love it. But another thing is we should also try to spend some money in transit. Please. Because if we don't, the future is kind of hard. If we keep expanding by highways, there's no point of return at a point. You cannot just break all these highways and invest in transit and like rebuild whole new grids. Our suburbs, they I don't know how can we fix them. They're cul-de-sacs. They just pile up traffic, and all that traffic goes into Katy Freeway, which is one of the biggest freeways in the world. I think this the putting money in transit could really help all those people rather than going on the highway. A single person taking so much space, we can fit them in transit, trams, trains, buses, other stuff that would really help us. And I think we could do it if we really want to. I request the city, if anyone's watching, I request them, please invest in our transit. I heavily, heavily, heavily thank you. Now, I want to ask y'all, if you could change one thing about I-45, what would it be? Would you add more lanes, redesign interchanges, or invest more money in transit so fewer people need to use it? Make local roads safer or do something completely different? Let me know in the comments. I actually want to hear people what think, because I-45 is one of those roads where everyone has an opinion. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more videos about Houston transit, highways, infrastructure, and urban planning. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. And don't forget to like.